everybody. I'm Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. The aim of this podcast is to raise awareness about blindness, visual impairment, and disability in general, in a happy and light-hearted way. For those of you that don't know, I am blind. I was born with a condition called bilateral anophthalmia. Try spelling that one. It basically means that when I was born, my eyes didn't develop properly, so I wear prosthetics instead. The goal of this podcast is to remove some of the stigma and stereotypes around disabilities, whilst also having fun at the same time. Each week, I will be interviewing people from all walks of life, including some with hidden or physical disabilities like mine, and getting to know a little bit more about them and the lives they lead.
In this episode, I am very excited to tell you that I will be talking to actor Ellie Henry.
My name is Evie Roberts, and this is my podcast, Talking in the Dark. Welcome. Hey Ellie, how are you doing?
Hiya, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really, really good, thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and agreeing to be on the podcast. It's such a pleasure to get to chat to you. And I'm very, very excited to get to know you and get to know your story. But before we get into any of that kind of thing, how's your day been? What have you been up to recently?
It's been good. The sun is out today. I'm in Manchester, and I'm preparing my house for my dog to move into. He's been staying with my parents since I've moved into here, and he moves up. I'm going to get him tomorrow. So I've just been putting his food bowls out and getting his toys out ready for him. So I'm very, very excited about that one.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that so much. What kind of dog have you got?
He's a cockapoo.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's so cute. Oh, I love that so much. I'm guessing you're a bit of an animal person then?
I am. My mum's got 2 cats and 2 dogs. Well, she's got 2 cats and 1 dog, but when my dog's there, it's a 2 cat and 2 dog household. But
Oh,
yeah,
very matchy, yeah.
Yeah, I'm debating bringing one of the cats up to this house because her cat and my dog just get on so well. But we'll have to wait and see because I'm actually a bit allergic to cats, but I love them so much I would do anything anyway.
I do actually respect that. I really do. I feel like I would be the same. I mean, to be fair, like if the cat and the dog get along, it feels like you almost have to put them together, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. But my stepdad's like, oh no, we can't lose one of the cats because then we'll just have 1 cat and 1 dog and our household won't be as crazy.
I almost respect that. I respect the kind of like chaotic energy. But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I'm definitely an animal person as well, so I can definitely relate to you there. We've got a cat and a dog, 1 cat, 1 dog. So less crazy than what your family have got going on, but still up there. I wish I could say ours got along well. They do, but I think there's a bit of, bearing in mind our dog must be like twice the size of our cat. I think there's a bit of fear from his end. So yeah, they get along, but probably not as well as yours do.
I'm thinking about, my dog's called Ralph. I'm thinking about getting Ralph a kitten when we've lived in this house for like 5 years and I'm settled. I think I might, because he's a ginger cockapoo. So I think I'm going to get a ginger cat because I've heard they're like the craziest, coolest cats. So I want to complete the set.
I feel like you have to. I love this energy so much. Like, not only is it matchy, but also like just yes, they are super cool cats. We have a little ginger cat at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
And fun facts about ginger cats that I learned a while ago on TikTok, so I don't know if it's true, and I should probably put that disclaimer out there. But apparently, I think it's about 95% of ginger cats are male cats, and we have a female.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should fact check that information, but that is incredible if so. If
Yeah,
true, that's brilliant.
I know it definitely should, because I really shouldn't be taking TikTok as like truth. But like, if it is, that's really cool. Because apparently it's not like that with any other colour of cat, and I don't know why it's the case with ginger cats, but I found that really cool.
Yeah, maybe there's a genetic variant. Who
That must
knows?
be. I don't know, but very cool anyway. But yeah, I feel like you have to get him a kitten at some point.
I agree. I truly agree. Let's wait and see.
Yes, definitely get settled first. Anyway, um, tangent about animals over. Glad you've had a good day. But obviously the kind of point of this podcast is to get to know you and to get to know your story. And I believe that, like myself, you have a disability. So could you begin by telling me a little bit about your condition?
Yeah, of course. I have Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder, and I also have epilepsy. I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, which we shortened to EDS. I was diagnosed with that when I was 15, and then the epilepsy came along as a surprise when I was 18. I got diagnosed on my 18th birthday, so I started having seizures when I was 17. Um, but yeah, the EDS, one day I was in a dance class and I did a pirouette and every joint in my right leg dislocated. And that was me in hospital for the foreseeable future. And then using a wheelchair part time from then on, really.
Wow, okay. I mean, yeah, because I believe that you were quite a sporty kid. So I can imagine that obviously from doing all the sports you did do to then kind of not really being able to do that kind of thing, which I assume was maybe kind of one of your escapes as a kid, that must have been like pretty difficult to kind of comprehend, especially as you're a teenager during your kind of like formative years.
Yeah, EDS lends itself quite well to it's like hypermobility, but just a lot worse. So all of my joints were flexible, which made me a great gymnast. So I did gymnastics as often as I could from probably about like the age of 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there. And every summer I used to go to gymnastics camp every day. I did every sport you could imagine. I loved rock climbing, ice skating, football. I was really, really into football. Um, and then yeah, I couldn't kick a ball. I couldn't like pick up a ball. One of the first times my shoulder dislocated, I was throwing a ball in rounders in PE. So yeah, I really just lost all of that in a dance class, which is quite ironic because that's something that I'd done every Saturday forever, and there was no reason for it to show itself that day, but it did. And then yeah, as I said, lived in hospital for quite a while. I kind of looked at physio as sport for me. They used to come around every morning at 7 a.m. in the hospital, and I remember sort of putting that in my head as like a training plan and being like, right, I need to eat right, I need to do the physio exercises. And I used to say to my physios, I'm going to be like Hulk by the time I get out of this hospital because everything that we were doing, it felt so hard to me. And I felt like I was really building muscle. And they were like, babes, you're on like a TheraBand and you're not even on the strongest one. So let's take a minute and chill out. But yeah, no, to lose that it was tough, but I found my space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is what it's really about, isn't it? Like, obviously, losing that. I mean, that was a massive 180 for you then. Going from one of the sportiest kids ever to not being able to do that complete 180. And I think, yeah, like you say, it is about finding your space. It's about finding ways to deal with that. But I feel like treating physio like sport then, I feel like that's quite a rational way of doing it because that's obviously what you're used to, so your brain is obviously like putting that into just like a different kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it was actually in that time in the hospital, I remember watching videos of like some of my old dance teachers who would like attend class at like Base or Pineapple Studios in London. And I was watching them. And that's when I decided I wanted to go and train in musical theatre and do ballet, tap, jazz, all of it, all the time, every day of the week. Um, so that was kind of I was sitting there unable to walk, unable to I couldn't stand up straight, like I kept wobbling around. My nerves just didn't know where I was in space. And that was when I was like, yeah, guys, I'm going to drama school.
I love the resilience so much. Like I love the just like get up and go of that. Like the kind of just watching videos and then going, yeah, this is what I'm doing. But I'm curious actually, because obviously, you said you were sporty, you've said, and you did dancing quite a lot. Had you ever thought about kind of maybe the musical theatre or acting side of it when you used to do dance and sport as a kid, or was that never kind of something that crossed your mind?
I truly never thought this could be a career. I went to theatre train every Saturday from, again, the age of 5 or 6. Well, you have to start when you're 6. So I went every day, every Saturday from when I was 6 years old. And I enjoyed it. It was the best part of my week. Every week was Saturday, going for those 3 hours singing, dancing, and acting. I loved it. I made my best friends there, had the best time. But I never once thought of it as a job because I just had so much fun. And when I went and saw like panto and musicals and stuff, never once did I think, oh, these people are getting paid for that. I don't think I had the awareness that as a grown up, you need a job that pays the bills, and this is an option. So I was really academic, so I had that to focus on. I feel like schools do push you towards academic subjects and uni if you are good at like academic things. So that's just naturally what I got pushed into. So I wanted to be a helicopter medic. I wanted to be a medic in the army, or just flying in situations, being a medic and saving people. But then when that happened, I was taken out of all of that, and I was taken out of school for months and months. And I was year 10 into year 11. I was just constantly ill. And that wasn't an option anymore. And it was only then in the hospital where I realised that this is what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go to college and do this at Performing Arts College. And even then, I still don't think I thought it could be a job after that. And now here I am, and it is my job, and it is what I do. And I feel extremely lucky for that.
Yeah, definitely. And it is kind of mad the way things work out sometimes. But it's an interesting conversation, actually, what you were saying there about kind of academics. And that you were kind of naturally good at them, which is definitely a really great thing to be during school. But also that like convo of schools naturally pushing towards maybe academics more than creative subjects. And it's definitely, I think, a very interesting conversation topic, because it kind of makes sense, like schools are that kind of hub of academics. But it is definitely an interesting thing to think about. I know I'm in sixth form right now, and uni is a really hot topic at the minute, something that I definitely want to do, but something that is very focused on in school, maybe more than like the more creative side of things. And so I think, like you say, it is about finding that side of yourself, maybe more outside of school, and then going on to study it once you leave kind of like your main education.
Yeah, and I can completely understand why the schools are doing that. Having academics to fall back on is never, ever, ever a bad thing. And if you are academic, pursue that, but keep your creative interests going on the side. There is absolutely no harm in going to uni, studying a subject, and then going off and doing something creative afterwards. Because even now, a lot of people who work in industry will have a second job that requires some level of academics to be able to do it, because that's how some people just have to pay the bills. So it's never a bad thing to continue down the academic route, but I was very fortunate that for me, that moment happened, and then I knew that academics was kind of done for me. I still don't have a GCSE in science to this day. That's something that a little side quest I might do for myself in the future, is go and get GCSE science, because the school decided that I was too unwell to sit the exam. So I've always kind of missed out on that one, but who knows, in the future that might be a little thing I get for myself.
Wow, okay. I mean, do you know what? Love that as a little side quest, definitely. Because I feel like obviously we've talked about how being a teenager, being in year 10 was such a formative year to get that diagnosis. And I think the kind of transition period that you must have gone through at that point was very intense. But I think that actually just going, like you say, on a little side quest and just getting that literally for you, and having that just like self-fulfillment of being able to actually achieve that, I feel like that'd actually be really nice.
I agree. I think disability takes a lot away from you, and sometimes it's nice to reclaim those things back. Because at the time, I wasn't fighting to go and get GCSE science. I was like fighting to stand up and learn to use my leg, and like just getting out of bed in the morning into a different chair. Those were the things I was focusing on at that point in time, not science. So now that I'm at a much better and different place with my disability, it would be nice to reclaim that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, like that really wasn't your problem at the time. You know, you had a lot to deal with. But I love what you said there about reclaiming it. I think that's such a nice way of putting it. And I do think it kind of feels really nice to almost get those things back that you weren't able to do at the time, but now you're in a different stage in your life, you're in a different mindset, having the opportunity to almost get back what you couldn't have at the time, but now can have. It's a really just nice thing to do.
Yeah, and nobody's asking me for my GCSE in science. I
Yeah.
just turned around and gone, have you got a GCSE in science to make me feel that way? But it's just something that stuck with me, and I'm gonna do it one day.
Absolutely. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, because it's really not something that you talk about or need, but it's interesting how our brains just go, oh, do you know what? I really want to do that.
Yeah, and I love the subject. I really enjoyed it. As I said, I was academic, so that was a shame.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, it definitely makes sense for you to want to kind of redo it. And do you know what? Good luck on your side quest.
Thank
If
you.
if that is something you end up doing, yeah, definitely good luck on that. I really hope you're able to do that. Now, we've kind of discussed almost at great length already that you are an actor, but you know, kind of, and I guess we've all almost already discussed how you kind of became interested in the profession, but you've said that you went to drama school and then you studied it, but how did you actually kind of start getting acting roles, and what was that process like?
So the process for me, as I said, I went to a sixth form drama school instead of A levels. So I did an A level equivalent, but it was at a full-time performing arts college. After that, I went and did a foundation year in just acting because physically I realised musical theatre was not the place for me. My body couldn't handle it. I developed epilepsy within that time. There was a lot happening. So I decided to just sidestep into just acting because I loved it and I could. So I went and did a 1 year foundation course, and that was in the year of 2020. So COVID happened and it completely shut the world down. We couldn't go into study. I went straight back to my parents' house because I'm not playing about with my immune system and COVID. That was not for me. So I left London where I was studying, went back to Milton Keynes where my parents are. And I was just the whole of our third term in drama school. Third term is where you put on your shows and agents come and watch, or you're auditioning for degree courses, and everyone's focused on that. But again, I seem to just take my own path, and I decided that I wanted to get an agent. I'd done 2 years training in musical theatre. I'd then done a year in acting. And for people that don't know, a musical theatre or acting degree is a 3 year course. And in my head, I was like, I've done 3 years of this. So I should have a skill level now to enter the industry because I started 2 years before everyone else. So with the videos that we had from our third term, which was all online, so we had to record every monologue and every scene that we did, I put that together and I sent that to my agent, who is Visible. And they weren't my agent at the time, but they watched what I had sent and said, yeah, cool, we'd love to represent you. Let's go. So I did. I signed with them, and it was amazing entering the industry. I booked like my first 2 or 3 auditions I ever did for Visible, I booked, which is kind of unheard of. You enter the industry expecting that you'll audition for years and years and never book anything. And that didn't happen for me. I got really, really lucky, and I feel like it was exactly what I was meant to do in the exact time I was meant to do it, because it was only through COVID happening that I got my agent, and it was only through disability happening that I even pursued this as a career. So the path was kind of already there, and I just put the effort into to make it all happen further.
I really love that, and I feel like that's such a cool and such an unexpected way to get into the kind of industry that you're in now. And I seem to end up having a lot of conversations with a lot of people on this podcast about kind of like fate and things happening for a reason, and whether that's real or not, and whether that really is true. It feels like things really worked out for you in that way, not at all in the way you would have expected or the way that teenage Ellie would have thought. Lots of kind of like twists and turns and different ways to get to certain things. But it feels like in a way it did kind of all fall into place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wouldn't be doing this, right? I wouldn't be speaking to you right now if all of that hadn't happened. And they were all things completely out of my control. I think it's important. There's one of my favorite quotes is from a book, The Artist's Way. And it says something about pray you catch the bus and then run as fast as you can. So it's that whole thing of like, if I want to do something, I'm going to trust in the process that I'm going to get there. I'm going to trust in the universe, trust in whatever higher power. I know that this is all going to work out for me, but I am going to run metaphorically as fast as I can to ensure that I still get there. And I think that's part of it. Like, if the world is, if I knew that I was going to end up here, I still had to put effort in every single day to make this career work and to get to this point. So as much as it was mapped out, you still have to be present and be part of every single difficult hurdle to get you to that place, whilst holding that trust that even if this isn't the path you thought you were going to go on, it is where you are and you're going to make the best of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And I love that quote. That's a really great quote, actually. I've never heard that before, but I do really like it. And yeah, I think you're completely right. It is, and I think I kind of mentioned earlier about your kind of your drive, your like get up and go attitude. And I feel like that actually kind of served you really well there, because it was kind of mainly that has got, and that like, okay, I'm gonna go get an agent, I'm gonna go do this, that kind of got you to where you are, which I think is a really cool quality to have, that kind of just like that drive, that want to be able to do things.
Yeah, thank you. There's just something in me. I remember at drama school saying to one of the teachers, I'm going to go out and get an agent. And everyone was in a circle saying which drama school they wanted to go to. And I said, no, I don't want to do a degree. I'm just going to go and get an agent and work. And she turned around and she said, well, it's not been done before. And I did it anyway. I've always kind of known myself, known my own path, known somewhere in the back of my mind what I was going to do and done it.
I love that for you so much. And it's like, okay, it's not been done before, doesn't mean it can't be.
Mm, exactly. Yeah, that is how I see everything, I think.
Yeah, I really love that, and I actually really admire that. I feel like that's such a great way to see things. So obviously, yeah, you had quite a kind of interesting time during COVID, getting an agent, doing auditions, and since that kind of time, you've had some really incredible roles and really incredible experiences. And you've had roles in things like Hollyoaks and more recently in the Netflix drama Runaway. So can you tell me a bit about those experiences and what they were like?
Hollyoaks was incredible. It was the first big job I booked. Before that, I did some adverts and some small campaigns. So to walk onto the set of a soap, everyone, like, I grew up watching telly. Watching telly is what I love to do in my spare time. So to now be on a soap that airs 5 nights a week, it was just incredible. And I entered the soap with a bus crash because obviously your character's got to become disabled somehow. If they're bringing a disabled person and
Yeah.
they wanna like do a bus crash, which is exactly what we did. So we flipped a minibus on like my first or second week in the show, and it was absolutely amazing. I just soaked every single minute of it in. I was so in awe of where I was, and I definitely felt the need to prove myself, but I think that helped me pick up so much knowledge along the way and just learn from all the people around me. I made some great friends. You're getting so much time in front of the camera, and I'm able to learn from the camera guys why they've done a setup a certain way or what lens we're using and why, and chat to different directors. Because the thing about a soap, you have different directors every week. So on Hollyoaks, 1 week will be directed by a certain person, the next week will be directed by a different person. So in a day, you could be working with 4 or 5 different directors, and every director has a different style. So it was really cool to learn how to work with different people and understand their vision for the show. And then I had a great time at Hollyoaks, and to then leave Hollyoaks and book a Netflix job. That was wild. That was beyond my imagination. So obviously that's like on the tick list of things any actor wants to do. A soap, a Netflix are definitely on there. So Runaway was, oh my God, another incredible experience. I remember I got picked up every day to be driven to set, which was amazing because with epilepsy, I couldn't drive at that point in time. And I just went downstairs and my driver was waiting outside for me with a Costa coffee in the car. And he's called Liam. He's the best driver ever. I love him so much. And he would pick me up with a Costa coffee, drive me to Runaway. I'd be in my trailer. I felt like a kid at Christmas. Every single thing I looked at, every single day that I got to go to work, I felt like the luckiest person ever. And I never once took any of it for granted. There was one day they brought me into work accidentally, like 2 hours early. I was so happy to be there. I was like, oh, could I just sit and watch them, please? I used to stay and watch scenes that I wasn't even in just to understand more of what was happening and how I could be better at my job. And I got to work with amazing actors like Ruth Jones, James Nesbitt, Minnie Driver, all people who I've looked up to, and like James Nesbitt, what a guy. Phenomenal. The shows that he's in, people watch a show just because James Nesbitt's in it. And here I am with him pretending to be my dad. Like it was the best experience. And then to watch that show when it came out, that was really cool. To sit on the sofa with my dad and watch 8 hours of Netflix in one day because I'm in all of it. It was wild. I just feel so blessed to have had the career that I have had up until now.
That is genuinely insane, and all of that must have been so surreal. I mean, listening to you talk about that is mad, but actually getting to live that and that being your life and that being your career must be pretty insane. But yeah, I mean, what you mentioned right at the end there about actually getting to watch it when it comes out, I imagine that's just an amazing experience in itself, because obviously when you're filming it, you're in it and you're doing it, but then obviously getting to have that experience and watch it back with other people and with your family, that must be a really cool thing to get to do.
I can't even explain, like when you're filming it, you genuinely do not know what it looks like. You're not looking at it through a camera. I don't know what Jimmy has done behind me in a scene because I'm not looking at Jimmy. I'm not the camera looking at us. I have absolutely no idea what other people have done in a scene. I just know what my character's path is, why she's there, why she's saying what she's saying. And that's what I know. I don't know. There's so much happens in the edit. They cut bits, they rearrange bits, and then it's out in the world, and people presumed I'd seen it. I hadn't seen any of it. At the screening, we watched episode 1, and that was another crazy moment. I was sat there, Harlan Coben, the writer of the show, was sat behind me, and I'm like in one of the first scenes, like the titles run, and there is my face. And as my face comes on the screen, he like pats me on the shoulder and he's like, well done, man. And I literally was like, this is actually possibly the craziest moment of my whole entire life. Harlan Coben has just watched me on this massive screen in this scene that I didn't even know if it was going to make it into the episode. And he just patted me on the shoulder behind me. Like, my mind was entirely blown.
That's actually mad. Like, I
Yeah.
just, yeah. I mean, that genuinely is crazy, and such a cool thing to get to experience. I feel like I keep saying this, but that's kind of all I can say, because that must be amazing. But speaking of kind of, like you say, getting to meet such incredible people, I mean, like you've mentioned on Runaway, you got to work with some really, really incredible actors. And what was it like to work with, such kind of like professionals, people who've been in the industry for so long? What kind of lessons did you learn from that?
I watched James Nesbitt in every scene. Like, we had rehearsals and I stayed behind to watch other scenes that I wasn't in, just to watch how he worked. And he knew everything. He knew the script inside out. And that is something that I take very seriously as an actor, is the prep. When I booked Hollyoaks, I bought myself an iPad. And I still have that very iPad to this day. That's the same one I use. We're like, what, 5 years later? I still use the same iPad. And I go through every script when I get it. I read the whole thing, even bits I'm not in. Um, And every bit of prep that I do on that script, James Nesbitt did on his. So I was pretty impressed with that because I was just watching everything he did. He knew everything. Every question that was asked him, he knew the answer. And then there was one time where he didn't know the answer. And I said, "Oh, Jimmy, it's this." And he went, "Yes, Ellie." Because it was just such an amazing moment. And I was really, really fortunate to get to work with him. He is just so professional. And yeah, this whole conversation is making me feel very lucky.
I love that though. Like, I just, yeah, it's such a really, really amazing thing to get to. But that must be an ego boost, right? I mean, obviously, the prep, like you say, as an actor, I can't even imagine how important and how vital that is. But knowing the answers to that one question, I feel would have boosted my confidence for at least a week.
Yeah, because I'm like new. I'm sitting there in my wheelchair in my school uniform, trying to prove myself, trying to prove that I deserve to be there. And there's often this thing of like, I hope they haven't just hired me because I have a wheelchair and they want to tick a box of diversity or whatever. That was absolutely not the case with Key Street for 1 minute. But I will always have that in me of, I'm not going to give you any reason for you to think I shouldn't be in this room right now. So I will always prepare 110% as much as I possibly can. And in that moment, I realized that's exactly why I do it. Because in that moment, I didn't just prove that I was there because I was an actor who also has a disability. I was there because I was good. I knew my stuff and I should be there. So that was really nice.
Yes, I love that so much. And again, that is an interesting conversation, I feel, about that kind of want to prove yourself. I feel like we naturally, as people, want to do that anyway. We want to prove that we have a reason to be there. But I do think personally, and I don't know if you feel the same way, that when you do have a disability, maybe that kind of want to prove yourself and that need to prove yourself possibly increases slightly. I'm definitely someone who really wants to show people that I have a reason to be there and I can. And I don't know if you feel the same, but actually, like you say, in that moment, knowing that you were there because you are incredibly talented and because you are good at what you do is probably very validating.
Definitely. Definitely. Since becoming disabled, I've definitely always had that whole sort of like, I'm here because I can do it and I will show you exactly what I can do. I will do it 10 times quicker. I'll do it 10 times better. I will do it just as well as I would have done it if I wasn't disabled. And obviously, that looks different in different ways. Like, I'm not going to run a marathon. I'm not silly. But the things that I can excel at and put my all into, I'm going to. And I was speaking to another disabled actor about this recently. He said that he will never give anyone a reason to think that he shouldn't be there. All the other disabled actors that he's worked with have always put in that extra effort because you never want to give anyone a reason to not hire the disabled person next time. Because I think there's this thing of when people go to, like, casting directors, let's say, they're coming looking for an actor to fill a role. I can see the barriers that they would see when looking to hire a disabled person. If they've never worked with someone before, then I can see why they would think of these things as barriers when there's quite simple solutions. So I will never want to be the reason that a casting director goes, "Oh, well, I worked with one disabled person once and they just didn't really know their stuff and they just sort of weren't on time." I never want to be that example. I will always want to be the best example and for myself, and I feel like I'm representing a lot of the disabled community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting that point actually, because there's kind of two sides to it, I suppose. And I agree with you about being able to see the barriers. If someone has never really worked with and interacted with someone with a disability, I can also see it. I can see the thought process. I can see why they might feel that way. And on one hand, I think it's probably quite a lot of pressure. If someone's never worked with a disabled person before and you happen to be the first disabled person they work with in that industry to kind of prove that and prove that disabled actors are worthy of being hired and being booked for jobs. But also on the other side, really great when you can prove that, when you are the person who is able to prove that to someone. That's kind of a really great side of it as well.
Exactly. I agree completely.
And kind of speaking of your disability, we've kind of discussed your condition quite a lot earlier. And I think within that, we maybe kind of briefly mentioned, so you are an ambulatory wheelchair user, but can you kind of explain what this actually means?
Yeah, so ambulatory wheelchair user means that I'm able to walk and also use a wheelchair. So, for example, in a shop, if I want to reach something high up, then I can stand up and do that. Or if I am at a venue and there's a few steps to get in, then I can stand up and someone can carry my wheelchair up those few steps. I'll walk up those steps and then I'll sit back down. In a car park, I'll walk around my car, get my wheelchair out, and then sit in it. So I have a little bit of use of my legs. They get tired, they hurt a bit, but they are able to carry me some distance.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that. And again, kind of keeping on the disability conversation and more within acting and disability and how those kind of link, because I know there are often kind of misconceptions about being an ambulatory wheelchair user, and I know they became kind of quite apparent in the form of comments made, especially when Runaway actually aired. So can you tell me a little bit about this?
When Runaway came out, on every Facebook post, every Instagram post, every TikTok, every Twitter, there was someone saying, they made a mistake. She stands up in this scene. She's faking. She's not actually in a wheelchair. Like, it's all an act. Obviously, I'm an actor, but aside from that, they were saying that I wasn't actually disabled, or that the production company had made a mistake and I'd forgotten to use the wheelchair for a scene and it was all pretend, and that I could walk, which I can walk, and I've never claimed to not be able to walk. This is just a disability conversation that had to follow the series because of a lack of public understanding. And I was more than happy to have that conversation. From the minute I started at Runaway, they knew my disability, they knew my situation, and they were happy to give that to the character. So from the minute I was cast, Anya, the character I played, became disabled. She became an ambulatory wheelchair user. And when we were filming, I said, guys, people are not going to understand this because people don't understand this in my life. So we're doing this on quite a big scale and we're going to get some people who don't understand. So just prepare yourselves. But none of us, me, the production company, anyone, were not prepared for it to be so unknown and new to people. And we commented on every single picture, video. Like Harlan Coben posted about the series and it was on his Instagram. It was a big response to what I thought was such a little part of the series.
It's again definitely a really interesting one, and like you say, it's just about a lack of awareness and a lack of understanding. But yeah, for such a small part of the series, and also kind of such a small part of your character, because Anya's disability wasn't mentioned. It was a part of your character, but not in any way that was mentioned at all. It was just kind of there. And it's interesting that for such, like you say, a small part of your of that series and of your character, that it had such a big reaction, like such a snowball effect.
And we chose not to mention it. That was a conscious decision because that wasn't what the story was about. The story wasn't about Anya using a wheelchair. The story wasn't about the fact that she could walk sometimes and she couldn't others. That wasn't the point. The point was the sisters run away and we're all looking for her. And then X, Y, and Z happens that are much, much, much more important and high stakes and bigger factors in this family's life than the fact that they've got a kid who uses a wheelchair sometimes. So we decided not to speak on it, and I'm really glad we did that because it meant that when people did have the questions, I was there as Ellie Henry, the disabled human being, to have that conversation and to speak. We had a really nice article in the Radio Times, a few articles, I think, and that was able to educate on a much wider scale because it wasn't just a throwaway line in the series. It wasn't just a flippant comment from the guy playing my brother or the guy playing my dad. It was an actual conversation that someone sat down and had with me, essentially used my words to explain it on a global scale to all of these people who had no idea. So I think that was really valuable in the end.
Definitely. And I think almost in a way more powerful as well, because like you say, that really was not the center of attention in that plot. That was a very detailed plot, Runaway, and that really wasn't at all the main focus. But actually, I think the fact that you got to educate so many people on such a wide scale with just a few articles and a few candid conversations that were then put out to the public as you, like you say, not as the character, just as you. I feel like in a way that is so much more powerful than it would have been had it almost been addressed in the series itself.
Yeah, and let's be thankful they hired an actual disabled person to play the disabled character, because if they hadn't, then that conversation wouldn't have been able to happen in such an authentic way. And they knew who I was. From the minute I stepped on set and had the first conversations, they knew that I was open to talking about this. They knew that if things went wrong on set, we would handle it together. I was very, very open with them about what I would or wouldn't need, because there's wheelchair accessible trailers. In the UK, there's only two, but there are two wheelchair accessible trailers, and they were struggling to get a hold of one. And I said, guys, actually, we may not have to do that. We can put these things in place and then not need to take up this resource that maybe someone else on a different set needs. And given that there's only two, I'm very fortunate that we were able to work our way around that. But because I'm so open to having these conversations with them in production, they knew that when the time came that it needed explaining to the public, I would be there to do that and happy to fly the flag.
Exactly, and probably why those conversations are so important as well. Not only so that they were prepared, and not only so that they had it clarified that you were prepared and you knew that this was going to happen, but also, like you say, on like with the trailers and with the more kind of like accessibility side of things. I think it's about talking through it and having those conversations that you're actually able to find those workarounds where possible to make things work in maybe a slightly different way than the first thing you think of. And I feel like that is a big part of having a disability, actually. I know this is a convo I have with quite a lot of my guests, but like those, I feel like you do have to, in a lot of cases, really know yourself and really figure out kind of workarounds in certain scenarios, because sometimes you may not have all the things that you need. It's about adapting.
I will also say I'm not very good at knowing myself. I'm not very good at understanding my disability. I'm 9 years into living with a disability now, and there's still things that I make the wrong decision on, or I'm not quite, like, I've never experienced it before, so I wouldn't know. But on set, I did have an access coordinator, and she was able to put a lot of suggestions forward, and then production and I would have a discussion and say, do we think this would be helpful? Would you like us to implement this? And some things I would say yes to and some things I would say no to, just because disability isn't a one size fits all thing. So it was really good to have that access coordinator there to make suggestions that I hadn't thought of. But I was also very eager to be my own person and have my own conversation. So once I had the knowledge from her, I was then able to go and say, cool guys, so we've been speaking about X, Y, and Z, ramps, lifts, distances of walking, and I think we need to do this, this, and this. And they were very receptive to that. So I was very, very lucky with Key Street.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that is such a kind of important part of that, and an important part of what you do. And I would imagine that kind of just like willingness and that like cooperation that you guys all had probably made your life a lot easier when it came to production and when it came to filming.
Yeah, and I think a big thing for me is I don't want people to be scared of asking the wrong question or scared of saying the wrong thing, because ultimately then that's worse for me, because if you're scared of saying the wrong thing, then you're probably not going to say anything, and that is way worse. So from the minute I met one of our producers, I walked in and I said, hey, so like I'm not the best at being disabled and I'm going to get things wrong as well. So if you want to ever just like bounce ideas off each other, like I'm such a safe space to just do that, and we'll both get things wrong and we'll figure it out together. Because I never wanted them to feel like they couldn't ask a question through fear of I think like with cancel culture, people assume that they say the wrong thing once and that's that. But actually, I'm really, everyone I work with, I'm trying to say, just ask the question and I will give you the best answer I can.
Yes, I completely agree with this. And I think definitely in your industry, with working with so many people and with working with that kind of team, it's so important to be that person and to kind of eradicate any of that fear that might be there. But I feel like just in general as well, I'm the same. Like, I would so much rather people just ask me than feel scared to ask me. I would so much rather people ask me, because if they ask me, we can figure it out. I can
Yeah,
give people answers to things they've been wondering about. Because if you don't ask, you don't know.
exactly. Exactly. And I can understand some disabled people, and they have every right to feel this way. They're fed up of the questions. They don't want to be asked about disability. They don't want to be asked personal questions about themselves. And that's why, like, I make it known as soon as I get there that I'm happy to have these questions thrown at me, because I said this in one of the articles and the interviews I did. If I have that conversation for someone who doesn't want to have it, I've done my job. I am more than happy. Me explaining ambulatory wheelchair use on a global scale, if that means one less person has to have that conversation in a day who doesn't want to have that conversation, I'm so happy for that.
Yes, I love that mentality so much and completely agree with it. Because, like you say, yeah, some people just don't want it. Some people just don't want to have that conversation. They don't want the questions. They've had it too much. I get it. Like,
Mm,
it makes complete sense. And I think it is a fine line, definitely. And everyone is different. Everyone has different attitudes towards it. But because of that, I think it's really great for the people who are chill with talking about it and are chill with kind of educating people in a really kind of just like light-hearted and relaxed way. If we can make other people's lives a little easier through doing that, and that's kind of what I try to do with the pod in a way,
mm,
is like educate people so that the people who are just done and just like tired of having to have those conversations and educate people themselves, they can get a break. They don't have to do that.
exactly. Very well said.
Thank you. You too. I think you probably explained that a lot better than I did. But my next question for you is one that I ask every single one of my guests, and I think is probably my favorite question to ask. And that is, what do you think has been your proudest moment so far?
My proudest moment is actually nothing to do with acting, but everything to do with sport and reclaiming. So I have been learning to sit ski, mono ski. It has now been 2 years that I've been doing lessons. And my proudest moment is the first time that I was at the top of a mountain, sitting on my ski, about to go down. So for those who don't know, a mono ski, I'm basically sat on a seat with one ski underneath me. And then in each of my arms, I have what are like crutches. And then on the end is like a tiny ski. So I essentially have one ski underneath me and then two tiny skis in the ends of my hands. And that is how I ski. And I go down a mountain, I go down a slope, and it is just the coolest feeling ever. And it is the best thing that I've done for myself. And after about 7 months of learning, I took my dad to Andorra with a disability skiing charity. And that was my first time on the mountains ever. And I fully skied on a snowy mountain.
That is just like incredible. And like you say, must have been exhilarating in so many ways, because I feel like skiing is it's definitely thrilling. I would imagine. I've never done
Mm,
it, but of all the sports you could pick, um but B, like you say about reclaiming, that's basically a 360.
mm.
Like, you were a sporty kid, then that was kind of taken away from you. Now you're able to do that again, maybe a different sport to what you would have done as a kid, but same rules apply. You're still getting that thrill and you're still getting that enjoyment out of it.
And it was the first adaptive sport I ever tried. I was quite scared to go back to sport. I was quite reluctant because I didn't want to do it and just feel the difference from how I did it before to how I do it now. I didn't want to do adaptive football or adaptive rock climbing just because I knew how it felt before, so I knew how it would feel different. And skiing, I'd never skied in my life. So my first lesson, my only experience ever of skiing is sat down. And yeah, I chose it for a reason. It's a crazy sport. It's dangerous, it's risky, it's high stakes, and that's exactly what I look for. So it was the best thing I've ever done for myself. And I'm very proud that I took my dad to the mountains and he got to watch me do it.
As you should be, definitely. I love that answer. I am curious though, obviously you've just said that you kind of were quite reluctant to get back into sport, and that does make sense. And I also think it makes perfect sense why your first tread back onto those kind of boards was a sport that you'd never tried before. But what made you actually decide that you wanted to get back into sport? What made you decide that you wanted to actually try skiing, and how did you get into it? How did you discover it?
I was on a break from acting. It was after Hollyoaks, and I was in Liverpool at the time. And a few members of my family went on a ski trip, and I was like, that's not even something I've ever thought about. We're not a skiing family by any means. And I felt left out. And I was like, no, I'm going to find a way to do this. Because everything that I do, there's an element of like proving myself or challenging myself or challenging someone else's perspective. And that's why I skied. I booked myself an indoor slope ski lesson and I went and learned because I was like, you don't think there's a way that I can do this? And if I'm honest, I didn't know there was a way I could do it. So I found one, and I was supported by there's a charity called Disability Snow Sport UK, and they make skiing completely accessible for people with visual impairments, brain injuries, like disabilities like mine, where people with limb differences, all sorts of abilities can still ski. And it was just amazing. It's completely opened my mind so much to everything that I can do, because if I can ski down a mountain, I can definitely like take the dog for a walk, or I can definitely navigate the tube in London because I can ski down a mountain. So why wouldn't I be able to figure that out?
Yeah, it must kind of put a lot of things into perspective in a way, I suppose. Because yeah, exactly. If you can do that, suddenly you can do a lot of things, because a lot of things aren't as kind of daring or maybe as difficult as skiing down a mountain. Sure, they all have their difficulties, but in different ways. And I guess, do you think now you're kind of back into sport a little bit with skiing, do you think there are any other sports you would want to try, or do you think skiing is kind of your calling now?
I'm happy skiing at the minute. I'm happy seeing where that takes me, seeing how far I can get with that one, doing things that I didn't think I could do. I haven't found another sport adaptively that I haven't done before, or that just perks my interest enough. But there may be something. I'll just have to wait and see what my Instagram feed throws me next.
Absolutely. See where the algorithm takes you, and you never know, I guess. But yeah,
Exactly. I might be
definitely.
skydiving next. Who knows?
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, that would be really cool. But yeah, literally, who knows? Whatever, like you say, whatever the Instagram feed generates. But speaking of things you might do in the future, my final kind of question for you then is, do you have any aspirations or goals for the future that you'd like to achieve?
At the minute, I want to keep doing exactly what I'm doing. I want to stay in the space I am now, stay in the routines I'm in now. I feel like I'm 9 years into disability. I'm what, like 5 years into my acting career, and I'm really, really pleased with where my life is at right now. And I think when I was 15, obviously I became disabled. I didn't know that life would look like this now at 25. And I'm really quite happy with how my life is at the minute. And I just want to keep going exactly as it is. I want to keep acting. I want to keep skiing. I want to build this little home for me and my dog and have my family over and just kind of stay as who I am at this moment. I think I feel like I've reached a pretty nice stage.
I actually think that's a really great answer to that question, and probably says a lot about actually how much you've been able to achieve in those 9 years. Because yeah, I think I get a real mix of answers to that question. And I talk to a lot of people who have loads of aspirations, and I think that that is great. And I think that, you know, that's such a great thing to be able to have, and a great thing to be able to have that list of things you want to do. But I think it's equally as great to just be happy with what you're doing right now, and your aspiration literally should just be, I want to just keep going. I feel like that, and I feel like that actually kind of says a lot.
And I also think when we look at how I've ended up here, earlier when we were saying if I hadn't become disabled when I was 15 and if COVID hadn't happened, then I wouldn't be here doing this now. It's that same kind of thing. And like, I trust that the acting job that I'm going to find after this one, that's going to find me. I'm going to be doing that. I've put the effort in. We're going to book the jobs, the house. I'm happy with where I am. I made the right decisions to get me to this point. So I just want to live in that.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you there. And I think, yeah, that's a really nice and actually really powerful answer. And I wish you the very best of luck with everything that you do in the future. Because I think that absolutely, yeah, I am really looking forward to see all the acting jobs you end up getting, because you definitely deserve all of them, girl. And thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for agreeing to do this. It's been so lovely to get to talk to you and to get to know you. And I think I admire a lot about you, but like I've said about 3 times, I'm gonna say it a fourth. Um, I think the thing I probably admire about you the most is just your like genuine just drive, your resilience, your like get up and go. And I think that's a really great quality for someone to have. But thank you so much for doing this. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm really glad. And thank you so much to my audience for listening. And I will see you all next time.